all those you can.
Alright, we're going to let the pro side start out.
Yay!
Wait, yeah, we're sitting on the wrong side. Oh well.
It's okay. Okay, so pro side, go ahead with your opening statement.
Okay, we believe that the question here is whether or not technology is making positive changes in student learning, yes? Yes. And we believe that that is not really a debatable question, especially since reading all the cons, it was hard for us to define cons and the cons. The cons felt like pros, right? Sorry that you guys got that. So instead of like debating the details that feels like a 50-year-old debate of should writing exist or not, we thought the best thing to do is look at the fact that we all agree that it can make change, and we all agree that the changes can be positive or negative. So how can we address the realistic negative fears around this, mitigate the negative, and maximize the positive? So what we talked about were the potential negatives and how we can reframe those in a way to try to make them positive, all the while increasing the positives. Because our understanding of that was if even the classicists are at the point where we're like, fine, use the Twitter thing and the big screen, and then the debate has ended. So it seems like it would kind of be a disservice to all of us to debate that on that level of detail. So we looked at the big picture stuff and how to address it, which is things like, yeah.
Okay. The two main things that we looked at were this concept of fear and concepts of access and privilege. So we talked about how there are often a lot of fears about students being online and who or what they're going to encounter. So we thought about ways that we could actually educate the educators so that we have responsible online internet usage by students, and we can kind of avoid engaging in those very few times when they're actually going to encounter situations that might come up. We also thought about access and privilege. So obviously not everyone is going to be able to have access to technology as students. So we thought about how you can actually create a digital literacy program within schools so that students will have access to it within an educational program.
Yeah, one of the other things that came up in the cons was this also fear-based idea of the shallows. Like that if we go on the internet.
Time's up.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's stop. Okay. Yeah, it's just 2 minutes back and forth. Okay, so Con, go ahead with your opening statement.
Okay, so we felt very similarly as you that in a lot of ways the debate has ended, but what we also did was try to focus in on where we might take what context that this might still be debated, and we kind of came up with the argument that basically we took it away from higher ed, and we just said that within the grade school, like K through 12 context, social media should not be openly accessible to students without teacher monitoring. So that's kind of how we tailored the argument, and the major reasons for this some of them relate to your points. I think you were well chosen. I guess I'll cover this one and then you cover these two. But basically the first one is that the cognitive development science shows that at the early stages, especially elementary and middle school, but especially elementary, that's the stage when the brain is most adept to doing large content information memorization. And so the importance of being able to deliver large bodies of information that can be memorized, like your times tables or like larger historical narratives, it's really important then. And later on, the learning to discourse with that material is very important, and that can be switched over, and that's more, I think, on digital media. But so that's the first one, is especially for the lower grades. But then there's other ones for the upper grades that are just as important. So do you want to take on as a teacher?
Okay, well, so other concerns in K through 12 are that at that age they just lack maturity and focus to avoid just purely using it as a distraction or for cheating. Bullying is a really big issue, and in K through 12, teachers are held more accountable to monitor everything that students are doing in the classroom, and so they can, if you are allowing it as part of the classroom, then they are responsible for monitoring what's happening online and in front of them, which is essentially totally impossible for teachers to do. And also,
Sorry, that's
Sorry.
that's good. Okay, so pro side, your rebuttal.
Okay, okay, yeah, that's good, but I don't think
Yeah, that's a true validation statement.
well done, we're good. But I wouldn't think, and you can agree or disagree with me, that we can really put this kind of delineation between K through 12, because K through 12 is what's preparing the students that we get. And we can't say that then if we do kind of what I hear you saying, which is that it needs not to be allowed and/or too much structuring and too much monitoring, when they get to our freshman Comp 1 class, and we expect them to know how to regulate their own learning and how it involves this technology, they won't be able to do it because they haven't been taught to do that. I also think you can't avoid the reality of the fact that they are going to use this in their lives every day. So whatever kind of results occur in their brain or their thinking or their learning can't be avoided. All we can do is teach them in the classroom how to be productive within that capacity.
Right, and I was thinking too about when you were talking about the times tables and the historical narratives. I think that educating with digital literacy can be actually brought into, memorizing times tables and learning about history, so that you're sort of doing both simultaneously. And I also think that, this concept of teacher monitoring is also going to be huge, and that it's a lot for teachers to try and focus on when you have students in the classroom with technology. But again, while you're going to be educating the students who are going to be learning how to do that, you're also, I think, educating a new generation of teachers who will learn how to monitor that in a more effective way.
Yeah, that is good.
In play. Like, I hear that this group is writing an article for Kairos about play. And they have some brilliant ideas about how students can...
Oh, now we're allowed to know.
Thank you for inviting by the Dr. J. Okay.
Okay.
Rebuttal?
I know the exact 3 points we need to make, right?
okay.
Okay, no, we can play off. But the one is, we didn't get to say earlier, we were saying that, A, it's social media, not digital media. So social media as in Facebook and things that are, you're unable to see and track at all versus online programs. The other thing was that we also think that there should be a course for digital literacy, which I agree, you can't segregate it, but that way there's a time set aside for it, and they are being taught to use it rather than being openly allowed to access it during other subjects. And teachers should integrate projects at certain times in the semester where social media is used, but that way there's a constraint around it, and there can be monitoring as opposed to openly accessible throughout. So that's the first thing. And then did you have...
Oh, well, do we want to say the issue about...
Yes.
Okay, so other potential issues that we can say before, so now I'm going to say. There are issues with access. If you just allow it open in the classroom, some students would have more access than others because some have access to mobile technology that others do not, and so then that creates a kind of inequitable environment in the classroom. And then also there's the issue of if you make it part of the curriculum, or if you incorporate it as part of the class. One of the things that we talked about, or we read about this week, was the issue that there's a lag in how this stuff's assessed. And so that is an issue that has to be addressed before you incorporate it as part of the classroom.
Agree with the thing about teachers learning how to do that, and as I believe we're capable of doing that. The problem, though, is being able to find a way to integrate that with the system, especially within the public school system. Of how will that be acknowledged? Because you have to, how do you, on a daily basis, justify and measure teaching outcomes with social media in particular? Not like I agree with you, digital media is one thing, but particularly with open social media, that's a little harder. So we're going from this.
Do you keep going? How long?
No, that's it.
Okay, now we have
Okay, so you said